I'm really shocked. What if like we are actually BRVs and we live in a simulation? Then I think we wouldn't be as calm and as Neo from the Matrix.
The following is a conversation with my dear friend Catherine Teng. She's a student majoring in philosophy and has a lot to say about any philosophical topics. In this Zoom call, we've discussed an interesting philosophical topic called the brain in a vat. We've also talked about the famous sci-fi film named The Matrix and the video game available on Steam called AI The Somnium Files. I hope you enjoyed this special episode, and here is my conversation with Kat.
Hey everybody, we're here with my friend Catherine Teng. Today we're going to discuss an interesting philosophical topic. Can we as humans tell if we're brains in vats? Kat, can you tell us a bit more about the brain in a vat hypothesis?
Yes, of course. So the brain of that hypothesis is something like a philosophical thought experiment where humans are just brains in vats being fooled by some sort of evil or alien scientists. It's something like we actually live in a virtual world, as the world is a computer simulation generated by the technology. Um, so that's basically the hypothesis setting.
Okay, so there are actually two specific arguments based on this hypothesis that we're going to explore today. And can you tell us a bit more about these two arguments?
Yeah, so I'm doing a research project on this hypothesis for my philosophy class. So I found actually several interesting arguments and possible answers to this hypothesis. And two of them are especially intriguing to me. So the first one is called the brain bound versus inactive argument. So the brain bound view is the view that our brain directly determine what we experience. In that case, our bodies are not really essential for our conscious experience. So the body are not like necessary needs for us humans if we want to consciously experience the external world. But on the other hand, the inactive view is the view that our consciousness is a process of the body interacting with the environment. So the necessary requirements for our consciousness include our bodies and also our brains. So to summarize those views, our brain-bound view is that we don't really need a body to be experiencing all sorts of things that we're experiencing now, but the inactive view is that our body and brain are entirely entangled, so we can't really separate them.
I find it kind of fascinating that like our experiences are not just controlled by our brains. Because I think I used to believe that the brain alone was the most powerful organ that would determine our consciousness. So this argument that the minimal requirement for our consciousness includes the body and not just the mind actually gives me a newfound appreciation for my body.
The argument concludes that we can tell that we are not brains in vats or so-called BIVs because our bodies and brains are dynamically entangled, and the consciousness that we have right now is not limited to the brain, according to the inactive view that we just discussed. So consciousness that we have is not a brain activity, but it's like an organism phenomenon.
So, Kat, how does the inactive will help us arrive at the conclusion that we are not just brains in vats?
So, for according to the inactive view, if a vat is adequately functional to act as our bodies to feed us sensations, memory, impressions, and all sort of external experience and like internal consciousness, then it would be something like surrogate bodies. So this vat would be not bad at all.
So basically, the vat only works as a surrogate, like a proxy, right?
Yeah, so it would be nothing different from bodies. I think that's why this argument concludes that we cannot be BIVs.
Okay, great. Now let's move on to our second view. So, Kat, can you tell us a bit more about the second view?
Yeah, so the second argument is the direct realism argument. So direct realism is the view that in normal perception, we're directly aware of something in the external world. So it means that it's something basically like naive realism. So we don't really even need circular arguments to prove that we're not BIVs because that's how direct it is.
Oh, that's actually quite interesting. Let me think of an example. So if I was bitten by my dog, I would know for a fact that I was bitten because it would just be really painful. And the pain to me would just seem so real that I know for a fact that I was bitten.
Yeah, so you like directly knows, like you immediately knows that happened because of your sensations and like just your perception of the external world, like, and also your memory impressions because you remember that you just got bitten by the dog. So that's how the direct perception works. Like we don't really need other pieces of evidence to prove what we just experienced.
So, Kat, how can the direct realism help us get to the conclusion that we as humans are not BIVs?
Well, I think that because we are directly aware of something in the external world, that could be like the objects, events. We would know that our sensations and perceptions are real. So we cannot be experiencing the vat because we just directly know that we're not experiencing the vat. So this argument is not really a traditional argument because it doesn't really need any additional premises or evidence to support the conclusion because that's just we directly knows that we're not BIVs. So it's really heavily relied on our sensations and like memory impressions and those things.
Oh, okay. Isn't that true that direct realism is also called naive realism? Why is it called naive realism?
I think that's true because really I could think of like a counter argument to the direct realism argument because of how naive that is. That the counter argument goes something like we can believe something is true, but it's actually a hallucination that we experience because according to direct realism, like we directly know something was going on or is going on, but it could be not real after all. So sometimes like it's we can't really rely on our perception of the world that like 100%.
Yeah, that's true. I actually want to add to that. So if I put a pair of chopsticks in a cup of water and the chopsticks appear to be bent, this is an illusion, right? I know for a fact that those chopsticks are not banned? How do I know? Well, they weren't banned when I first put them in the water, and they aren't banned when I take them out. However, when they're in the water, they absolutely look like they're banned. If I follow the idea of direct realism, I would have to believe those chopsticks are banned because that was what I perceived. Even though I know they're not banned.
Right, that's a really good example for this counter argument. So you know what direct realist would argue against what you just said?
What would they say?
I think that they would say something like we have like a large amount of knowledge or like common sense to distinguish between illusions, hallucinations, and reality. So
Oh,
like for example, if someone is seeing a ghost, then other people would say that like we know for a fact that you can't really that could not be happening in reality. So that must be a hallucination. So that's how we like identify hallucinations from reality.
so what if we have been truly bad with since day one? Then how can we just rely on our knowledge or common sense to help us, decide if we're just bracing that?
Right. I think I would agree with your statement because what if we have been BIVs this whole time, then we can't really rely on our knowledge because it could be all made up by the simulation or the computer or the program that were plugged in the vat. So for example, if the program of the vat said that red is actually blue, then we would believe that color is blue all the time. So we can't really rely on our knowledge for that.
Also, those two arguments do provide, different perspectives on this BIV hypothesis.
Right.
So there's just not a single, like a standard answer to this question because now we're looking at so many different arguments and possibilities, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I think maybe we can all have like different opinions on this hypothesis, but like during my research process, I found it really interesting that all the arguments I found all come to the conclusion that we are not BIV. So it's really interesting that I didn't really find an argument that supports we are BIVs. So that's an interesting thing to think about when we are doing this thought experiment.
Now that we've discussed two potential arguments to this hypothesis, we've also found media representations regarding this topic. Among them is a movie called The Matrix. So, Kat, do you want to tell us a bit more about this movie, The Matrix?
Yes, definitely. The Matrix is a really well-known movie, like a sci-fi legend. So like for most of you might have already watched this movie before because it's so classic. The world of the Matrix
Move in and
exists
out of any
as
software
a
stored on
part
the
of the
operating system.
neural interactive simulation. So it's not the real world, right?
Well, I mean, that sounds a lot like a dystopia. And
Right.
what do you think went through Neo's the main character's mind as he registered the world where humans live in tanks and are plugged into the Matrix app? So how could they, make sense of this world as the real world? What if it is just another layer of the Matrix?
Right. So the setting of the Matrix, like the tank that Neo was plugged in. It's really similar. It's almost the same thing as Brain the Vet, except for he did have a body, but like the body wasn't functional. Like all of the experience were happening in his brain. So I do think it's a really intriguing perspective and a unique perspective to think about the simulation theory or the BIV theory while watching this movie, because it's makes us think about like how do you know if you're in the Matrix or not? Like what, like for example, in the Matrix movie, I think Neo first noticed that something was like a glitch or something went wrong in the Matrix world. So that's when he slightly noticed that it might be a simulation or a fake world.
Okay, so do you think there's a logic ground in terms of explaining the BIV theory just by, watching the film?
Oh, because like in the movie The Matrix, Neo was actually given the opportunity to know that he was in the Matrix because the other characters gave him like
Remember,
the red
all I'm
pill,
offering is
blue
the
pill,
truth, nothing more.
so Neo to like come back to reality. Like they let him know that they actually live in the Matrix. So, but if we are BIVs, we don't really have that opportunities. If like we don't really have those characters who can give
Like
us
we
the
don't have a choice. We just don't have a
right,
choice to choose if we can see the real world.
right. But also, thinking about like we just discussed that Neo found out like some glitches in the Matrix world. Maybe if we are BIVs, like the program wouldn't be so perfect that it doesn't really have any glitches.
Speaking of the pills, I want to explain a bit more on this, just to anybody who hasn't watched the movie. So if Neo took the red pill, he would be given the opportunity to understand what was actually occurring outside the illusion created by the Matrix. On the other hand, if he took the blue pill, he would just return to experiencing only that illusion. So if you were Neo, what pill would you take? Are you going to take the red pill to have a better sense of reality, to see the real world, to see, to discover that other humans are all plugged into the Matrix? Or are you going to take the blue pill to just stay in the Wonderland?
Right. So, I think to answer that question, we have to understand that the Matrix is not like a Wonderland or a utopia after all, because Neo was already experiencing something wrong, like glitches in the Matrix world. So, like, what if like something would the Matrix world would eventually collapse, like the VATs or the programs would not be lasting forever, then I think like eventually people like Neo would have to return to reality.
Yeah, right. So that is a very good movie if you're interested in this subject, BIV theory. And we would highly recommend anybody to watch it.
Yeah, so that's a really great media representation regarding the simulation theory or the BIV theory. So for anybody who's interested, I also discovered a game that's available on Steam and also Nintendo Switch platform if you are interested in the simulation theory.
I played a couple games on Steam before. So what game is it?
Yeah, so the game is called AI Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. So it is like a video game where you play as like two detectives to solve a homicide case.
I mean, a detective game. That sounds cool. But how does it relate to our topic?
Yeah, so I actually want to show you a clip from the gameplay. Clip is after the ending of the game, but you have they have like a cheat code where you can find one of the characters and enter the cheat code, then the reality of the video game world would reveal. And let's just watch the clip together.
By the way, would you mind if I asked you a question?
What is it?
Are you perhaps a Freya?
Freyr?
I am asking the person within you.
What?
I will ask you one more time. Are you a Freya?
Hey, Yuki.
As I thought. Then you've realized this world is fictional. Am I correct?
Ryuki, what's gotten into you?
This is the true world. Do you understand? No, that is not the case. You must already realize that you have transcended the logic of causality.
Ryuki, are you okay?
What about Tokiko?
I have no idea. I was out cold.
Mamoru, where's Tokiko?
Huh. She was just here earlier.
Are you stupid or something? It's just one of your typical episodes.
Episodes.
Yeah, your hallucinations? I think you need to get some sleep.
Now they've finished the clip of the video game. I just have so many things to say about it. So first of all, I think during that video game clip, Ryuki, which is the dude, the main character,
Right.
says something like, "Is this a hallucination or is it reality?" Like he himself doubts if it's a reality or not, which actually ties back to what we've just talked about, about like direct realism, about how to decide if what we perceive, like how to decide if the external world is real or not.
Right. I think it really ties back to our discussion on the direct realism argument because when I was playing the game, the female character Tokiko was always like some sort of crazy character when she always says like the world is fake and we're all in a simulation. All the characters thought that she's crazy, but it's really interesting when you as the player do know that the video game world is fake. And Tokiko was correct the whole time, but it's something like if we are BIVs or like if we live in a simulation, then the video game would be like an outside view of us. Right.
Yeah, so actually during that clip, Tokiko asks the question directly to us. She's like, "Are you perhaps a Freya?" I'm asking the person within you. If you truly are Freya, you should know it. So she's basically asking us, like, the players, if we are if we know this is just a game or not. So that's actually quite interesting. Also, Ryuki explained to Tama how he met Tokiko outside the president's office. That was like a revelation to Ryuki because what happened there was something like really out of the ordinary. And Thomas simply replied, "Are you stupid or something? It's just one of your hallucinations, bro. I think you need to get some sleep." So they just, they don't believe what Ruki had just experienced. They all think, he's crazy.
Right. So it's interesting that Tokiko was the crazy person, the crazy character all the time, but like after what Ryuki experienced, then they both became like the crazy people. Um, so I think that's very interesting perspective because what if we are BIVs and one of us, like one human, just discover that we are in a simulation when the rest of us would not believe that person.
Yeah, right. True. I think you just made a great point. Um, I think there is a very strong similarity between the Matrix and this game, which is the two protagonists were all given the opportunity to choose if they wanted to, stay a fake world, so to speak, or if they wanted to discover the so-called real world.
Right. Yeah, so the difference is that if you played a video game, then it would be like a more um interactive experience. Like you actually experienced the whole detective thing, like you were solving this crime case, but like then you would realize that it's all fake. So I think that really was a strong experience for the players. Like even though we know that it's a game and it's not true, then but I still feel really shocked when I like reached that stage of the video game. So I think that might also apply to this BRV hypothesis because like even though I know it's just a game, but I am really shocked. What if like we are actually BRVs and we live in a simulation? Then I think we wouldn't be as calm and as Neo from the Matrix.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing about VIVs is that we just can't tell if the technologies were just very advanced. And what if we're already provided with, all the sensations or like memories by the technologies? What if this is all just made up?
Yeah, I think another thing to think about, like regarding what you just said, is that uh what if we have not like we haven't been BRV since day one, but like what if like starting from tomorrow you are dead and your brain is plugged into a vat, then how could you tell the difference? Like the tomorrow you is a BRV. Like how could you tell the difference between the BRV world and the reality, the real world that you have experienced? I think it's really hard to distinguish those two because I think if they're identical, like your memories and all the sensations are identical to the real world, then it's really hard to distinguish the difference, right?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's so true. That's a very interesting point. Okay, I think that's all we have for our discussion about BIVs. And now let's move on to our last session, which is the Q&A. I think a lot of my friends on my channel love to read. So do you have any book recommendations for anybody who wants to get into philosophy and potentially become more educated on this subject?
Yeah, I think if you're just generally interested in philosophy and like philosophical themes or topics, then I do have like several book recommendations. So I would recommend The Stranger by Camus and Notes from Underground by Dostoevsky, and also No Exit by Sartre. I am a fan of existentialism, but also for people who are interested in other philosophical topics, I really recommend to just listen to a podcast or watch YouTube videos. But also, if you're interested in a specific philosophical topic, then I really recommend you to look up the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, where you can just search the topic that you're interested in on their website, and they have a really well written description or like explanations uh, for the topic that you searched.
Okay, thank you. That is all for our discussion today. Thank you so much, Kat, for being here.
Thank you, Joy, for being the host. And
you're welcome. So if you have any further questions regarding either this BIV hypothesis or just a general philosophical topic, leave it down in the comments.
Great. Thank you for your time today, Joy.
Thank you. So bye.